Aloha mai kākou, and welcome to my presentation titled Vanishing Kāhuli, Identifying Native Hawaiian Tree Snails. My name is Liz Loschert, and I'm a senior at the University of Hawaii in the Natural Resource Environmental Management program. And I'm preparing this presentation for my Botany 450 Natural History of the Hawaiian Islands course. Before we begin, this is a quick mele about Kāhuli. It goes Kāhuli aku, Kāhuli mai, Kāhuli leula, le aholea, kolea kolea, vaiakolea, vaiakolea. This describes where you can find Kāhuli, their coloration, and the dew from the akolea ferns. Hawaiian tree snails are incredibly diverse. There's a total of 13 families and 752 described species. They have incredibly high endemicity, which means that they're highly diverse and adapted to specific niches in the environment. They're so endemic, in fact, that they often have two different species in neighboring valleys, where they might look similar, but they are in fact genetically different species from one valley to another. Tree snails, for the most part, feed on the fungus that grows on leaves and trees, as well as leaf litter. It has been theorized that with Kāhuli snails still present in native forests, we would see a lot less of an impact from diseases like rapid ohia death. Kāhuli snails are natural ecosystem recyclers and help keep disease low. However, Hawaiian tree snails as a whole are extremely threatened. 9 out of the 13 families are nearing complete extinction or have already gone extinct. And this is driven by habitat loss, predation of invasive species, and overharvesting by collectors post-colonization. So Kāhuli, the name Kāhuli identifies the genus Acatinella, which is found only on Oahu. There are 41 total species, 16 of which are extinct. They vary greatly in color and shell patterns, and they used to be used to make lei. These species are extremely endangered now. It's really, really difficult to see any that are alive. And in most places, you can't even get to where you need to go to find these snails. However, these are extremely fascinating, especially the Kāhuli. They have a long life history, which is incredibly unusual for mollusks. They're more similar to an elephant in that they take about 5 years to reach maturity. They give a live birth to one at a time, and they live a very long time as well. Kāhuli are also hermaphroditic, which means that in some circumstances they can self-fertilize. All species of Kāhuli are either threatened or endangered, if not extinct. So here are 3 main invasive species threats to the Kāhuli snails. The first and foremost and probably most impactful is the rosy wolf snail, or Euglandina rosea. These are predatory snails that were initially introduced to get rid of the African land snail population here. However, the rosy wolf snail decided that native nocturnal tree snails are a better and easier prey than this large, fast-moving land snail. So Euglandina rosea can track the slime trails of the Kāhuli and just eat them while they're asleep during the day. The African land snail is another incredibly invasive species. They're really big, and I see them around UH Manoa all the time. They're aggressive and territorial, and they're one of the most globally invasive species that have caused extreme damage to agriculture and other native ecosystems across the world. The third species that has one of the greatest impacts on Kāhuli snails is the Jackson's chameleon, or Trioceros jacksonii. These directly prey on Kāhuli and have been extremely harmful to many other native forest species. Kāhuli are found in native trees and shrubs. Typically, this only happens at high elevations, considering the amount of invasive plants that we have at low elevations here on Oahu. Um, they're also found in leaf litter. Some species do feed on leaf litter. But when they're in the trees, they're usually on the underside during the day because they're sleeping away from the sun where they're protected from desiccation. And they wait until night to come out and eat. And like I said before, this genus is only found on Oahu, but other families are found across Hawaii and even Polynesia. So where can you find them? Where exactly are they? So like I said, they're hidden under leaves mostly, and you have to look really closely because most are even less than an inch long, some less than half an inch, some only a few centimeters. You also need to travel far to see Kahuli. In fact, there's nowhere on Oahu where you can see Kahuli in the wild. There are two places with wild populations, and they're at the top of the Waianae and Ko'olau mountain ranges, and protected there in predator-proof enclosures that keep them safe, but the public is not allowed in unless you have a permit, a research permit. Their numbers, as I said, are very small in the wild, and you can find them in the highest elevations and whatever remains of native forest in the Waianae and Ko'olau mountains. However, if you want to get up close and personal with at least the shells of Kahuli and see really how diverse and beautiful they are, you can visit exhibits at the Bishop Museum. They have a couple exhibits. The main one is at the Richard T. Mamiya Research Center, which has a lovely display of shells that have been donated and collected by the Bishop Museum. The museum itself has a massive inventory of native Hawaiian tree snail species, but they have some Kāhuli snails as well as some other species on display for visitors to see. Here are a few of the extinct species of Kāhuli that we know about. So as you can see, a lot of them, all we have are drawings. That's because they have never been seen or recorded in modern times. So all we have to go off is these drawings. And this one down here at the bottom left, Acatinella apex fulva, is the species that Lonely George was. And if you remember, Lonely George was a snail who was the last of his kind, the last apex fulva individual. And he survived quite a while in a lab and eventually passed away a few years ago. Species that are still living and either are only existing through captive breeding and continued management, or exist in very small populations in the wild. One of the most notable is Acatinella mustelina with these black and white bands. Is very beautiful and very easy to distinguish. Another common species is Acatinella fuscobasis, is found in the highest parts of the Ko'olau mountains. But as you can see, even what we have that is remaining has extremely high diversity and great beauty as well. I think these snails are really beautiful and really deserve to be protected. So how do we Mālama Kāhuli? Well, one of the main programs that focuses on snails is the Snail Extinction and Prevention Program. The University of Hawaii works closely with this program to conduct captive rearing as well as build predator-proof enclosures. So down on the left is a quick image of how they do their captive rearing. They have environmentally controlled containers where the snails are bred. Since they're so small, you can fit up to 400 to 500 in one of these little boxes, and they're constantly fed a diet of fresh branches from native plants coming in from the wild that are all cleaned and sanitized, but still have the food that they need. Another important management action that's going on to protect these snails right now is removal of invasive species within predator-proof enclosures. So this fence design on the bottom right here shows how the fence works to protect against Uva andina, as well as mammals and reptiles like rats and the Jackson's chameleon. And within these enclosures, snails that are reared in the captive populations can then be released to sustain new wild populations that hopefully will persist into the future. But what can you do? What can you do to help Kahuli? Make sure that you are not transmitting the spread of invasive species. If you get a Jackson's chameleon from the pet store, do not release it into the wild. If you're going for a hike in the woods, make sure that all your boots are clean and your gear is clean and you're not bringing anything into the forest with you that doesn't belong there. These are really important ways to prevent the extinction of such an important species culturally, ecologically, as well as just aesthetically. They're beautiful, and people don't usually give a lot of thought to snails, but there's a lot we can learn from them and a lot of value that they have. So thank you for listening to my presentation. Here are my sources, and I hope that you all take this information and go forth with new motivation to protect an incredibly important species. Oh, okay.